Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another edition of Mark's On Commentary. I'm Jason Smith.
I'm Eddie Brophy.
All right, another week in wrestling, another 2 weeks in wrestling.
Well, yeah, because we missed last week, so we didn't get to cover Old School Raw, which I don't want to spend a lot of time on, but best opening to a Raw I've seen in a long time.
Absolutely.
Have Taker come out, not say a word, just tease that he's going to be at WrestleMania. More so, the fact that I thought that they rushed this whole thing. I thought, we all know Punk's going against Taker. We've talked about it on previous shows. That's all you're reading about on the dirt sheets. What I thought was cool was that they threw us a curveball by having the Big Show and Sheamus and Orton. Sheamus was the big curveball to me because he's the only one out of the four who hasn't had a match with Taker on that big of a scale. So I actually thought the Fatal 4-Way kind of, it made it more interesting. It wasn't just straight out like this is going to be Punk's match. Because there was a chance that I thought, Sheamus could take this. They could have turned their back on Punk and said, give it to Sheamus. Throw Punk into the triple threat with The Rock and Cena and just give it to Sheamus this year because Sheamus has shown interest in it in the past. So
that's true. I think that's an opportunity for him maybe down the road if Taker sticks around. I think it also played into the fact that they're going to kind of push the Shield kind of versus Orton and Sheamus and Big Show thing. It's
looking like Big Show, Sheamus, and Orton are going against the Shield at Mania, which you can't leave those guys out. You gotta give them something to do. And
of high priority too.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Well, because if they don't do anything with the Shield, it's over. Yeah. We've already discussed this. If they don't do anything with the Shield now, it's over.
I mean, that's gonna be the loss. In my mind, that has to be the first loss that they take because they won. What is it? TLC.
They won TLC. They won Elimination Chamber. Yeah. So and they've won those Raw. I was marveling at that they won the Raw match against Jericho.
Surprisingly, like out of nowhere too, where they've been able to hold off on taking that first loss.
Oh, absolutely. Well, to me, a big loss on, say, the Mania scale isn't that. I mean, they're at least going to Mania. They're at least keeping them on the card. These are guys that normally I feel like maybe 5 years ago they wouldn't have even bothered with. They would have said, we'll throw them in a match at Backlash, or we'll give them the pre-show, because I know this year they're talking that they're going to do a bigger, longer pre-show. So
which is fine. I don't mind the pre-show. The pre-shows are fun. Like it's free.
Yeah, it's this version or this generation's version of Sunday Night Heat. And I mean, that was the big thing that I miss about Sunday Night Heat was you got the pre-show into the pay-per-view. So if you couldn't afford the pay-per-view, and we were just talking about that because we were mentioning the re-release of WrestleMania, how the pay-per-views were, I mean, still are like $40, $60.
Now they're I think WrestleMania is like $70, which that's staggering.
Well, that's why I used to love Sunday Night Heat, the pre-shows, but we won't spend too much time on that. Although Old School Raw, because we can tie this into Raw this week, the New Age Outlaws are back.
That was awesome.
And they look phenomenal.
Exactly. They're super over. And I hope even continuing from this week, they made an appearance. It's a brief one, but I hope that continues into WrestleMania.
Well, here's the reason I don't want to spend too much time on Old School Raw was because arguably to me that was the throwaway show. That wasn't the show. That was the gimmick show. That was obviously, for guys like us, that was a big deal. We love seeing it. And, Triple H calling out Lesnar. Yeah. But what was more important was Raw this week because as most fans know, we lost somebody who was a genius and a veteran. Obviously, Paul Bearer, William Moody passed away earlier this week. However, this is the first time in wrestling where I can say that a death of an actual talent did not come across as tacky in a storyline.
It played because, like I had mentioned to you, Paul Bearer, Percy Pringle, whatever you want to call him, he was an old school guy. He's like a Memphis guy. Yeah. He's, part of that NWA, AWA regime.
Well, he was from the original territories.
Exactly. So that sort of thing. It wouldn't even be a question of, are we going to use this in a story? Of course we're going to use this in a story. So he would love that. And anybody that's like, oh, that's so disrespectful, he would love to know the fact that of WrestleMania, he's an important piece of progressing that story along.
Well, again, we talked about last week, and weeks before, the importance of managers. I mean, there's no bigger nod to a guy like this because he wasn't a star in the sense that The Undertaker was a star. He was the manager. I mean, yes, he was the mouthpiece for The Undertaker for so long, but very rarely do you remember managers like that. I mean, he left an indelible impression on the business and on that entire locker room.
Top 5 managers of all time?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, without question.
Very small list, but
it's a small list because it's a lost art. It's like the tag team. And again, pay-per-view opens explosively. Taker comes out to do his salute to Paul Bearer. Punk interrupts him like a total prick, totally sells up Punk as a heel, and then during commercial break, Kane comes out.
Yeah.
Now, this is the only worry I have with Kane getting involved in the Paul Bearer storyline was that what happened to Team Hell No? Like, I've already stopped caring about Team, and they still have the titles.
Yeah.
Like, now, obviously, they're going to have a match at Mania, and I don't care if they keep those titles. So maybe it is they are prime and right to be broken up. Like,
it's time. It's kind of played out. Like, it's peaked, and now it's on the descent.
Yeah,
I mean, you sold the T-shirts. You did. I mean, what else is there? There's no big team for them to fight. Like, they tried manufacturing a couple teams. It's not really worked out. Or it has, and they haven't been able to push it further.
That's where we enter the Outlaws. And again, they showed up this past week, and they were absolutely destroyed by Lesnar, which that begs the question, if he accepts the match with Triple H, what part are either the Outlaws going to play in Mania in, say, the tag team scale, or what position are they going to play in the Triple H Lesnar match? Bear in mind, X-Pac just signed a Legends contract.
Oh, wow.
So now you got X-Pac with the Legends contract. You got Billy Gunn and Brian James, Jesse James, who are agents. Obviously, they've been wrestling for, house shows in the two past Raws. Mm-hmm. There's got to be a DX influence on that match. To some degree,
I would hope so. I mean, the sad thing is there's never been like that DX moment at WrestleMania. Like, yeah, there was a little bit at 14. There was the crumbling at 15. But there's never been like, hey, we're DX in...
I feel well. That's the thing is because again, I'd argue crumbling at 14 and 15 because Michaels was hurt. We knew.
Yeah.
I mean, they all knew in the background. We didn't know as fans that his back was broken. He was done. And I mean, that was the end of DX. Again, we didn't know that we were going to get a new version of DX the following Monday. 15. I mean, Triple H turned his back on X-Pac, and him and China joined the corporation. But even like WrestleMania 2000, I mean, that was, Triple H and The Rock and Big Show and Mick Foley. But DX were kind of side characters. I remember, what was it, Road Dogg and X-Pac had a match against Rikishi and Kane. It was essentially a throwaway match because Billy Gunn was hurt. So it would be really nice. I agree with that there should be a big DX moment.
Yeah. On that stage, like the pyro going off, them doing all the shticks.
Well, I mean, we even talked about the Shield, There's a possibility that it's, Big Show, Sheamus, and Orton against the Shield, or finally Paul Heyman comes out with Lesnar. It's a big night for Paul Heyman because Paul Heyman's going to be both CM Punk side for Taker.
Actually, one quick thing did you notice, like, the Punk, like, where the hell is Heyman kind of turn when he was coming out last night?
It was so subtle that I missed it the first time, but then I was kind of wondering, like, wait, Punk's been doing this entire show pretty much solo. Like, where the hell was Heyman?
And to me, that was the first, like, acknowledgement of like, where the hell is Heyman? Like,
yeah.
So I don't know if that's a start of a story or...
dirt sheets, take them for what you will. I did read that they are kind of gearing up Punk to take on Lesnar. So, hopefully. I mean, I'm a Paul Heyman guy. I mean, I was joking with you last night. I was mad Taker didn't come out in I'm a Paul Bearer guy shirt.
I made that...
I saw the mock-up on my Facebook, and you had me fooled for a minute because I was actually checking WWE.com being like, they really have this?
I submitted that to Barbershop Window. I was like, you guys should make this. Like...
Oh, without question. I honestly, and I'm not saying profit off this guy's death. I'm just saying keep the legend alive. This is arguably one of the greatest managers, one of the greatest talents WWE has ever seen in years. And, I mean, there's a lot to say. I mean, stars like Kane, Undertaker, obviously, Mankind, Vader. He was the catalyst for so many big legends, future Hall of Famers. So it just felt like the perfect homage. And the match between Kane and CM Punk, arguably, Kane's not the greatest of wrestlers. I mean, Punk did what he could with him. Obviously, for good reason, it was a no disqualification match. I thought it ended well. Punk making out with the urn.
It advanced, although I didn't quite like it because, Undertaker, Kane, they're kind of mirror copies of one another.
Yeah.
And it kind of says, like, well, Undertaker can easily beat Punk. I think Punk should have had the win.
Well, this is the thing that I think, and I was talking with people about this last night, because I got in an argument with a buddy last night because he says, well, Taker's going to win. Taker has to win. Right, but it's more dramatic now if Punk does win.
Yeah.
Because, again, I don't think it really benefits Taker anymore to keep that streak alive. But now, and unfortunately, a real-life death has added some drama into a fake sport, which, wrestling, it's all gimmicks, but this brings some emotion into the match because now Taker has to win, not to keep the streak alive, but to restore the memory of Paul Bearer. Whereas Punk, now he's just, I want to take your streak and I want to shit all over the legacy of, the guy, your Paul Heyman, you know, Paul Bearer. So I think that I'm a little more invested now because there's actually something for Taker to lose, and there's more for Punk to gain. If Punk gains the if he gets the 20-1, not only has he beat Taker, but that would be a giant sort of FU to. I mean, all the critics in the back, but also it just cements him as the ultimate bad guy because not only did you beat Taker, you beat a very weak, vulnerable, older Taker who is now sans Paul Bearer. And I mean, I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if Kane does make an appearance in that match.
I'd hope not because I want to keep it, as pure as possible and doing something of that.
There are tons of cameo appearances I think we're going to get, like I said, in terms of the Outlaws, maybe X-Pac because he is under contract now. I mean... Would it benefit the match if they were there? Maybe not, because I want to see Triple H and Lesnar go toe-to-toe and actually entertain us, unlike, that last match we saw. But before we get into that, because obviously we can get into the sheets with that, you want to talk about TNA Lockdown, which is the first for us.
I know, with this first mention of TNA on the show. I briefly caught it. I'm streaming, if I can say that. Somewhat of a disappointing show. They have a match called the Lethal Lockdown where it's half the show is like in a cage, but like the big match was like a 5-on-5 or 4-on-4 Sting versus the Aces and Eights kind of.
Yeah, that's Devon and
and every year the cage, once the last guy comes in, the cage lowers the top of the cage, and I'm sitting there going, where the hell is the top of the cage? They didn't bother putting the top of the cage on. I mean, they're in the Alamo Dome, so I know that there's a height thing, but I was like, isn't there a cage?
Wasn't this the undoing of WCW? Didn't they have like a 5-story cage?
3 cage. It made Ready to Rumble. That was Ready to Rumble.
Yeah, and they actually used that for a pay-per-view.
Which I thought was kind of awesome, but they made it look like shit.
It's one of those things that it plays better in Hollywood than it does in real life. I mean, the only reason I even paid attention to any TNA-related news, because I was telling you before we started filming, Brooke Hogan took to her Twitter.
Yeah, but to jump back, if you didn't know, Bubba Ray Dudley, kudos. You won your first world championship. I give him props. I mean, he's great on the mic, somewhat great performer in the ring, but, he won his first world championship. Well-deserved. The guy's been in the business, at least 20 years.
Oh, yeah, at the very least 20 years, maybe 30 push. I mean, I could be wrong.
But yeah, the tweet of the week goes to Brooke Hogan, because at the end of the match it was revealed that Bubba Ray had turned on Brooke and Hogan and had joined this faction of Aces and Eights, and Brooke comes out and tweets that this isn't a storyline.
Which basically means it is.
It's a storyline. You know what's not a storyline? When your brother almost fucking killed somebody in a car wreck. That's not a storyline.
Congratulations, Brooke. You sold this storyline as well as the Ultimate Warrior sold the pedigree at WrestleMania 12. I read that because I was expecting something big because they had said that Jeff Hardy had a concussion. So I was expecting something like Bubba Ray lost his mind or got pissed at Hardy because we saw the match and I did see that match. The match was Sting and Hardy. He came out all messed up and he took 15 minutes to figure out where to throw his shirt. I thought we had another scenario of that where Jeff Hardy comes to the ring messed up and Bubba Ray, because Bubba Ray's mentioned in shoot interviews where Vince used to tell the acolytes, Farouk and Bradshaw, to go out there, beat the hell out of the Dudley boys, and just see if they could hang. So it's not unheard of in wrestling that two guys. And I mean, you showed me the clip after last week's show of Perry Saturn beating the hell out of a local guy because he couldn't perform any moves, he couldn't sell any moves. So Perry Saturn's like, "F this, I'm going to beat the crap out of this guy." So I thought it was that case there, and then I pulled that up, and I was just like, "That's it. Are you serious? Like, I've wasted my time."
I don't know, but. In other TNA pay-per-view news, I guess Boston's getting its second TNA pay-per-view.
Yeah, Slammiversary, if I'm not mistaken.
So June 6th, I think, from the Agganis Arena.
Yeah, it's going to be from the Agganis Arena, which, I mean, personally, I'm not a TNA fan, but I wouldn't actually mind going and just saying I've been to a TNA pay-per-view, because the problem with wrestling pay-per-views or just wrestling events, they do come to Boston, they love Boston, but they don't come all that often. We're not as much of a hot spot as say New York City or New Jersey, areas like that. So anytime you get any kind of wrestling event, it's kind of a big deal. And I mean, Agganis Arena, it's not that big, but it's actually kind of impressive for a company like TNA.
Big for TNA.
Yeah, exactly.
And they can only do better. What did I want to say?
And a lot of people were thinking Saugus Arena, which actually, again,
That's where the last lockdown pay-per-view was.
Against Arena is kind of diet TD Garden. So, I mean, with any luck, I'm not holding. I
will give TNA credit. They have kind of changed their pay-per-view model, which is really cool because now they're only doing like 4 major pay-per-views in a year, and they do like special Friday night pay-per-views where it's like we're just going to do X Division, we're just going to do tag teams or knockouts.
It's not a bad idea.
Different approach where you're not So the time between each pay-per-view isn't like, all right, well, who do we got? This indie guy, he's going to be in the main event now.
Well, it's different from what we're used to. And again, I said WWE's biggest issue right now is that you have a superfluous amount of pay-per-views and shows. Again, if you're going to make Raw 3 hours, nix SmackDown. If you're going to do X amount of pay-per-views, grab the ones that work the best. I mean, do the gimmick pay-per-views work the best, or do the following pay-per-views work the best? I mean, obviously you got to keep the big ones. You got to keep Survivor Series, Rumble. But even though some of those now, I'm almost thinking of like, maybe WWE's past that. I mean, maybe they're past tradition and heritage because how many Survivor Series pay-per-views can you remember where they actually did a Survivor Series tradition match?
Not much.
And Royal Rumble, how many Royal Rumbles can you remember now where the actual Royal Rumble winner went on to do something with the title? So, I mean, it may be time to even rethink their model in terms of the big ones.
I never knew why they didn't move those to special Monday Night Raws. Like, I loved the episodes where they did the King of the Ring on Monday Night Raw.
I do kind of miss that pay-per-view, though. The King of the Ring pay-per-view was one of the big ones that I really did enjoy, but I feel like there's only been a few really good ones. Like, obviously, 99 was a great one, but the one in Boston, 2000, that was a great one, but I feel like the ones that stayed specifically to the mid-card guys were the ones that always turned out the best. When you had a guy like Edge winning one year and then going back and winning the following, it loses its luster.
Definitely.
And when you have Kurt Angle who won, in Boston, and then he's wrestling in the next one, and he's wrestling, it's a little overdone. But that's one of the few pay-per-views I would like to see back. Survivor Series, I'm kind of over.
Unless it was a legit Survivor Series.
And I feel like, aside from maybe the mid to later 90s, obviously 99 was one of the only Survivor Series I remember where it was basically almost 6 or 7 matches of all traditional Survivor Series matches. So it's something to think about. But if we want to move on to the dirt sheets, we've covered that TNA's coming to Boston.
Yep.
We had mentioned the passing of Paul Bearer, and again, it sucks because I believe it was this past Saturday he was supposed to be in Melrose at City Hall locally to be doing a signing for an indie show. And I remember telling Franca, she was asking me if I was going, I said, I don't really know if I want to now because that's who I wanted to see. I mean, obviously it'd be cool to see X-Pac, but I kind of wanted to see Bearer. Like, it's just one of those things where everything that everybody said about him has been dead on. Like, he scared the shit out of me as a kid, and then they pan the camera away, and then you see The Undertaker. It's like, holy shit, that guy. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it was kind of a bummer that didn't get to happen, but I did want to mention this piece because we did mention Lesnar Triple H, and you're reading on the dirt sheets an MMA match.
Yeah.
We're getting close to some of your predictions are really paying off here, sir. The only thing that I was thinking I didn't want to mention to you till now, if they bring Ken Shamrock back to special referee the match.
Why not?
That's the thing. You have 2 legitimate MMA fighters who became WWE superstars. That's Ken Shamrock and that's Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar obviously was a superstar beforehand, and then went to MMA and came back, but why not? I mean, if you're going to make something like that really special, if you're going to actually have Lesnar and Triple H, say, all right, screw tradition. We're gonna do this real MMA match. We're gonna get, like the Lions Den type cage. Get Shamrock. I'm sure. I mean, I don't know what Shamrock's up to now. I mean, I haven't seen him on one of those where are they now WWE.com sort of things. But I'm sure. Seen him. I'm sure he'd be interested. I mean, to
some degree. I mean, even like a legit MMA guy, like I don't know all the guys like Tito Ortiz and stuff like that. I think some of them are semi-retired. You're telling me you can't get them to New York City for a weekend to be special ringside judges or something like that.
I could. Well, that's like no different than what they did with LT and I believe it was Bam Bam Bigelow for WrestleMania. The ring was surrounded by wrestlers and football players. I could kind of see that being the next LT Bam Bam Bigelows. You got one half of the ring of wrestlers and the other half of the ring MMA guys. That might actually be cool.
Yeah.
Although,
I mean, it's a gimmick. We talked about the big main events, one of them needing some kind of
right now, I'm thinking story-wise, I think that Taker and Punk is set. After this past Monday, I think that one's set. If they go through with Lesnar, because that was the thing that kind of kept my attention. I mean, he just beat up the Outlaws, and I'm like, all right, you got my attention now, because now we're seeing more of Triple H's guys getting in matches and getting TV time that are working behind the scenes. Obviously, this past week, funny enough, X-Pac gets a Legends contract. So you're kind of getting the impression.
Well, and you also have the tie-in from this past summer where HBK had the arm broken or allegedly. Yeah. But so it's kind of all these DX members. So you might not be far off in some kind of.
But it's interesting because if they go through with this, when they said we want a special stipulation, but you're not going to hear it until you sign the contract. Obviously, if Triple H doesn't sign the contract, he looks like a bitch. So he's gonna sign the contract. It's not that Triple H signs the contract; it's what that fucking what's that stipulation?
The other one being your career or whatever.
I feel like they could go that angle, but we all know that it's not like HBK where we knew that if HBK lost, he was really prime for retirement. If Triple H loses his wrestling career, he's still running the company. So, I mean, if they do that, which they might inevitably, I kind of feel like they will, I don't care anymore because it's kind of like, well, we all know he still works with the company. The only thing he's not getting is TV time in the tights and the tape. So that one wouldn't interest me as much, but I would like to kind of see what you were discussing. If it's an MMA match, get some special ringside people, get a special referee, or
build it up, have it like a legit thing.
Make it a real event. You already got press for Jack Swagger, and you were saying you kind of think the Jack Swagger Del Rio thing's fizzling out.
Steamed off. Where there's 4 or 5 weeks of television to come up with, but
don't give him any ideas. Don't get another Dewey. Whatever you do, don't get another Dewey, because I just feel like that's the problem. Like he was getting all this heat going in with the DUI and everything like that, and then it's kind of like. It was funny because there were actually DUI chants going on last night for Jack. So that's your reputation, Jack. Yeah. You came this close to being legitimized and you ruined it. So maybe it's time for Ziggler, or maybe it's time for Del Rio to get a legitimate run. We'll see.
That's the other thing. What do you do with Ziggler? Like I had mentioned how I thought it'd be cool to do like a Four Corners tag title match where you could put in Team Hell No, you could put in the Outlaws, you could put in Road Scholars, and you could put Biggie Langston and Ziggler
and that would be a perfect idea. The reason I'm kind of questioning that now, because we were saying how, to me it was the most insulting thing last year. And the year before they opened with the World Heavyweight title. Daniel Bryan had it for 8 seconds, and now Sheamus is an 8-second champion. You know what I mean? Like, we're in danger of not seeing Ziggler cash if that match opens.
I didn't even consider that's
if Del Rio and Swagger opens, we're in danger.
Maybe not necessarily.
Well, I mean, if Ziggler comes out now, let's say Del Rio and Swagger, it's good. It doesn't matter who gets over, because if all of a sudden one of the guys are incapacitated or whatever and Ziggler comes running out, I mean, that may be an okay opener, but I would almost rather go with your idea of a 4-corner tag team match where you have Biggie and you have Ziggler. And, as you were saying to me last night, he can kind of hide in that match and give Biggie
Ziggler's on the card. He's focused on the World Tag Team titles. Maybe even AJ is in the Divas title match or something like that.
They did bring back the Bella Twins, so I mean, I don't know if they're trying to legitimize the Diva division. I don't know if that's even possible at that point, but I was really surprised by that because I figured they were done, but they are dating.
But there's nobody left on the roster.
There's nobody left, and they are dating Brian and Cena, respectively.
I did see that somebody had tweeted Karma and was like, would you be interested? And she's like, possibly, so... I saw the death nail for me for the Divas division was when Karma had all this build, and obviously she had her pregnancy or her miscarriage, and then she's done. Yeah.
Then Beth Phoenix followed, because then last year we didn't get our Karma Beth Phoenix match, which I would have actually liked to see. And I feel like those are the two women that could have done like a legitimate gimmick, like a ladder match or something for the title. And Beth Phoenix has done them in the Indies. She's done them, so she knows her shit. But moving along here, we got a few more questions. I want to talk about Scott Hall, but I do want to raise the question about more Hall of Famers, because as soon as Paul Bear's death came up, Kevin Nash even tweeted, there's still time to get him in the Hall of Fame.
Is it weird that, what's there, 4? Like, usually there's a packed at least 6 or 7.
I feel like usually, there's 6 or 7, but at the same time, you got big names this year. You got Bruno Sammartino, who it didn't matter who they got. That's their number. Well, that was Triple H's number 1. You got Mick Foley. You got, obviously, Donald Trump. And then you got Trish Stratus. I mean, you got...
But there's a number of guys where people look every year, and it's like, he's not in the... Honky Tonk, you got friggin' Rick Rude, you got...
this is why, honestly, I don't want Paul Bearer going in this year, because... Well, first off, I shouldn't say this because I was okay with them using him in an angle, but let the body get cold first, because if you throw him in, because everybody cites, Eddie Guerrero, they did it with Eddie Guerrero... when Eddie Guerrero was inducted, he was still one of the bigger inductions. He wasn't obscured by the other. I mean, as soon as they say Mick Foley and Bruno Sammartino, and I was even flipping out over Trish Stratus because I thought, great, a diva, a legitimate diva. I don't want Paul Bearer's career or his induction to be eclipsed by those people.
Yeah, I mean, if you die before even the ballot's completed, like, it just feels like, he only got it because he's...
It feels disingenuous. It would be no different than when Heath Ledger got the Oscar for the Joker, and everybody said, he only got it because he was dead. That's arguable. I say he got it because he was a great actor, and that was a great performance. Same with Paul Bearer. Paul Bearer's in the Hall of Fame. He only got it because he was dead. Well, because that sullies a career that was tremendous. Like, he was a phenomenal talent. Definitely. Wait till next year. See where this Punk-Taker match goes. Taker's body may not hold out for another WrestleMania. If that's the case, I may get what I want and see Taker and Bearer go in next year. Yep. So, I mean, that's still up in the air. But you had mentioned here that you wanted to talk a little bit about Scott Hall.
Yeah, just quickly, he's doing well. I'm very happy for him. It looks good. Unfortunately, he needs about $80,000 for a new knee.
I will say, and this is right up there with people sending a petition to Washington for Randy Savage Day. I don't know if you heard about this. They want to make it a national holiday, Macho Man Randy Savage Day. They need, I think it was like 100,000 signatures. They only got like 26,000 or something.
Oh, is this like the Star Wars Build the Death Star petition that was out there, and the government had to respond because they got a certain number?
I think, yeah, pretty much. So, I mean, I think it's kind of cool because I think the people, and a lot of people argued about this, they said, well, why can't WWE pay for it? Why can't, his friends, why can't Kevin Nash, people like that pay for it? I think the people that really want Scott Hall to get better and really pulling from are the fans. If the fans are up for it and the fans want to donate and the fans want to see this guy get better, why the hell not? I mean, I'm sure he could find the money if he really wanted to, but I think it's kind of cool that, the fans are banding together and they're saying, no,
it's already up to like 56,000 or something like that.
And that's a morale booster, man, because if the fans are donating their hard-earned money for this guy he's the Charlie Sheen of wrestlers. He has had more than enough opportunities to get his shit together, and he keeps fucking it up. The fans are still behind him. I can't think of a better reason if he makes the $80,000 for that, the knee replacement. I can't see why he won't follow through and he won't finally get clean this time. For me, that would be a giant insult to his fans who, again, we don't have a lot of money. We weren't pro wrestlers. Like, we're just marks. Like, we work, dead-end jobs. 2 dead-end jobs. It's okay. But last thing we mentioned here, other Mania matches. Yeah. I don't like the fact that because they are talking about this, Henry versus Ryback, and they're already going to have it on SmackDown.
I don't think it's happening.
I did question that. Because that's a WCW logic. Why give a pay-per-view match away for free? Yeah. Something's going to happen.
It's somebody runs out beforehand, beats him up. It doesn't get to that. Or if it does, he gets him beforehand, rolls him in the ring, pins him. It's not happening in its entirety. I cannot imagine it too.
The suspense of recording on a Tuesday. We don't have our dirt sheets on SmackDown yet. And that was my phone ringing. However, the time is almost ready to expire, so it was almost fitting. Do you have any other thoughts you want to wrap up here?
Anything else for Mania that you're thinking?
For Mania this year, so far, again, we can recap. We got Triple H, Lesnar, possible MMA. We got Roxy. I was so happy not to see them on Monday.
Although I will give that match credit because that promo that they did on Monday, I'm one of the worst anti-Cena fans. That was a really well done promo.
You did point that out to me. I did think that was a well done promo. I think that there's a little story to this match, but I will not lie. I'm loving that Punk and Taker are completely.
Yeah.
At this point, you wouldn't even know that the company even has a belt because nobody's really talking about that. Nobody wants to talk about that. We want to talk about Taker and Punk. I'm a little hopeful that they might main event this year. Punk may get his first main event.
That would be nice. Like, just something different. Like, we've seen Rock, but, like I said to you, they always want to end Mania happy.
They do. That's, again, and I made that point to you, is, there is a possible way to end Mania happy in sort of a dark way, is if Taker does beat Punk, shuts Punk up, beats the hell out of him, instead of the, 21-0, just have the giant pallbearer, or I'm a pallbearer guy, or the giant pallbearer memorial. Yeah. And it's no longer about the streak. It's about, the honor of his manager. So
definitely.
However, our
time has expired. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all we have this time. I am Jason Smith.
I'm Eddie Brophy, so you don't have to be.
Thanks for watching.